Hello, boys and girls and Cougar parents. Let's take a look at tonight's packet. We'll be using some practical application of the Pythagorean theorem. Once again, you'll find out and realize that the world is full of triangles, and often we need to find that third side of a triangle to help us figure out everyday problems. Let's take a look at some of our problems. Okay, boys and girls, let's take a look at number one in the packet. We've got how far south of Columbus is Raleigh? Okay, well, what we have here is in the map, and your map looks a lot clearer than this, I hope. We've got Ohio, and then we have Raleigh down here. So actually we have Columbus up here, we have Raleigh all the way down there, and what they did for us is they drew a right triangle, which is a lot better than my right triangle. And they told us that Columbus is 305 miles west, and as the crow flies, or the direct distance between these two cities would be exactly 440 miles. Okay, and the question is, how far south, due south, is Raleigh from Columbus? So what we need to do is we just need to find the length of this leg of this triangle, and that'll give us the answer. We're just taking these coordinates, these directions, or not even directions, these 2 points on the map. We're creating a triangle to find the distance these two cities are, at least south from each other. Okay, so we have a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, and we will plug in, we'll say that a is 305, our b side is unknown, and then our hypotenuse is 440 squared. And 305 squared is going to be, and this I'm going to suggest using a calculator for this. We're working with some really crunching some big numbers and also finding square roots of some big numbers. So in my book, calculators are legal for this. I don't say that too often. I really don't like calculators. And then 440 squared is going to be 193,600. Now this is where the calculator comes in. Well, not even yet. We don't need a calculator yet. But then we're going to subtract 93,025 from both sides. Okay, we want to isolate the variable. That gets rid of that on that side, and I'm left with b squared is equal to 100,575. Now this is where trying to find the square root, we could do that through estimation. It would take a long process, but we need to isolate b. Right now b is being squared. The inverse operation of squaring b is finding the square root, so we need to do that to both sides. And we're going to get b is equal to, and if you punch this into your calculator, the square root of 100,575 is approximately, let me change that to approximately, 317 and 135 thousandths. And that's an approximation. Okay, let's look at the first problem on our last page. It's number 5. The page is backwards. We're going to do problem 5, real world Pythagoras. Here the question says a conveyor belt moves boxes up the ramp. If the ramp has the dimensions shown, how far do the boxes move along the belt? Okay, well, this conveyor belt is 9 feet high and 17 feet long. We need to find out the hypotenuse here, c. So again, we use, let's get rid of that. Let's go into, there we go. Okay, we use the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. A we're going to use as our height, so we have 9 squared. B will be our base length, which is 17 squared, and all that's going to equal the hypotenuse, which is side C. This would be A, this would be B, and this would be C. Okay, the hypotenuse squared. Well, 9 times 9 is 81. 17 times 17 is 289. And those two together will equal c squared. When we add these up, we're going to get 370 is equal to c squared. And we want to find the square root. Now, okay, so the square root of c squared is c, and now this is where we want to find the square root of 370. We don't need a calculator for this, folks. We're just estimating the square root of 370, and we know that the square root of 370 is somewhere between the two perfect squares of 361 and 400. Okay? 400 is going to be 20 times 20, and 361 is 19 times 19. So it's going to be somewhere between 19 and 20, 19 point something. Okay, so how do we find that point something? Well, we find the difference between our two perfect squares, and the difference between our two perfect squares is going to be 39, and that becomes our denominator. And then we find the difference between our first perfect square and the actual number that we're trying to find the square root of, which the difference between these would be 9, okay? 361 plus 9 would give me 370. So my exact answer is 19 and 9/39. And if I were to divide 9 by 39,
Ava Crowder, please go to
I'm going to get
2. Ava Crowder, go to carpool, your right is here. And Samantha for Alexandra
2.
Flores. If you're
Sorry
in the
about
building,
that.
please come to the office. Alexandra Flores, if you're in the building, come to the office. Thank you.
And then 39 would go into 120 approximately 3 times, and we can stop there. So we're going to say it's 19 and 23/100 is our approximation. That is our approximation. That's our answer there. Let's look at number 1, real-world Pythagoras problems again. Here, number 1 says a guide wire is 25 meters long. We see right there. It is attached to an anchor on the ground, which is 7 meters from the base right there. How tall is the tower? Okay, so they've given us side A is missing, side B is given to us, and side C, the hypotenuse, is given. So we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem once again, very practical use, to find the height of this tower. A, the height is unknown. B, the length of that base between the wire and the actual base of the tower is 7, and we're going to square that. And then the actual length of the cable or wire is 25, and we have to square that. So we're going to get A squared plus 49 is equal to 625. Because that 25 times 25 is 625. Some of us have that committed to memory. Now we need to subtract 49 from both sides to isolate the variable. Once we use the Pythagorean theorem to set up an equation. Once we have the equation, then we can solve our unknown length by isolating the variable. When I get A squared, and I do my first inverse operation is subtract 49 from both sides, A squared is going to be equal to 576. Okay, now my last inverse operation, what's the inverse of squaring something? Finding the square root. Okay, and what I do to one side, I need to do to the other. And 576 happens to be, very nicely, a perfect square. So A is equal, and it's 24, and that's our answer. The height of this tower would be 24 meters. Well, boys and girls, I hope that was helpful, and if you have any questions, please bring them to class tomorrow, and I will straighten them out, hopefully. Okay, have a good night. Bye-bye.